Let's take some time to discuss logic, physics, and mathematics. We'll begin by dismantling some widely held misconceptions. Then we'll move on to correcting the mistakes. So let's start with dismantling the notion of special relativity, which has very obvious flaws that break causality completely. So let's take a ride on Einstein's famous thought experiment involving the train. Our imaginary track will be 1 light year long, with a station and a clock at both ends. The train moves at light speed. As we leave the starting station at light speed, as Albert did in his thought experiment, and look back at that station's clock, we can see that the clock still shows the exact same time as when we departed the station. The light from the clock is traveling at the same speed we are. All good so far. Albert is a genius. Special relativity works beautifully. Now, I'm no Einstein, and approach things differently than he did. I like to look where I'm going, so I don't cause any accidents or get myself or others killed. Just seems the more responsible way of doing things, even if it is just a thought experiment. So let's now focus our attention on the clock at the destination station. If Albert is correct and time stops when moving at light speed, then the clock at the destination station should also stop. So let's reason that out. The time we would see at the destination station would appear to be 1 year behind the time at the departure station, because the stations are 1 light year apart, and it takes 1 light year for the light to reach us at the departure station. If time stops at light speed, then neither clock would appear to tick at all. That means that when we reach the destination station, both clocks would read the same times as when we left the departure station. We will have actually traveled 1 year into the destination station's past, while no time will have passed at the departure station. I don't think I have to point out how absurd that is. It violates causality. Now, let's look at what would actually have to occur. In order for causality to be preserved, both clocks must tick at the same speed relative to their specific locations. Einstein was correct about the clock appearing to stop at the departure station, so let's see what must happen at the destination station in order to preserve causality. At the start of our train ride, the clock at the destination station appears to be 1 year behind our time. It will take us 1 year to reach the destination station, so the clock must appear to us to be ticking away at twice the normal speed. The clock appears at first to be 1 year in the past, but must read 1 year into the future by the time we arrive. This destroys special relativity, but preserves causality. Einstein forgot to look where he was going. With special relativity debunked, that means all theories based on special relativity have flawed foundations. This includes general relativity and quantum field theory. What we are left with is quantum mechanics and classical physics. The heliocentric model is falling apart quite quickly. Let's put it out of its misery. With that, let's turn a critical eye upon LIGO, the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory. LIGO is a laser interferometer with arms 2.5 miles in length. The laser travels a total of 5 miles. It takes about 1/billionth of a second for light to travel 5 miles. The heliocentric model says we are traveling at 155 miles per second around the center of the Milky Way. So, multiply 155 miles by 5,280 to get feet. We multiply again by 12 to go from feet to inches. You get 9,820,800 inches per second. Multiply 9,820,800 by 1/1000th, and you get how far the Earth has allegedly moved in the time it takes for the laser to propagate along LIGO's 2.5-mile arms, round trip. That's 1/1000th of 1 inch, roughly. LIGO can detect a change in distance as small as 1/10,000th the width of a proton. A proton is approximately 0.00000000003937 inches wide, which is the equivalent to around 0.84 femtometers in scientific notation. Yet, LIGO cannot detect any movement whatsoever. If it could, LIGO would be absolutely useless. So your only options are to concede that the heliocentric model is bunk, or cough up an actual working model of luminiferous ether. Now that the standard model is out of the way, let's address this new flat Earth conjecture where gravity is caused by the Earth rising. The conjecture completely ignores mass in favor of weight. I'm not going to tell you what to believe in, but I feel it would be humane to advise you that disregarding mass leaves you open to unscrupulous merchants. You see, back in the day, before balance scales were invented, merchants found out that items weigh more at lower altitudes and weigh less at higher altitudes. That means that the phenomena we call gravity has different strengths and therefore different acceleration at different altitudes. Rising Earth would require consistent acceleration, which quite frankly does not exist. This is why your weight scale comes with an adjustable dial. APM does not require relativity, quantum field theory, or any equations that require 15 chalkboards to write out. Classical physics is quite adequate and works great as it is with no changes. I've covered gravity in previous video, which is based on Walter Russell's model of electromagnetic gravitation. I have seen people in chats mention Faraday cages as an argument against electromagnetic gravity, so let's address that now too. Faraday cage will block some electromagnetic radiation, such as microwaves, radio waves, but does that mean that it blocks all electromagnetic radiation? Absolutely not. Shine a flashlight into one, find out. See, visible light is electromagnetic radiation. Faraday cage also does not block static or slowly changing magnetic fields, such as the Earth's electromagnetic field. You'll have to come up with a better argument than Faraday cage. Let's recap on what we just learned and discuss it from a layman's point of view. Special relativity is essentially reduced to a theory of optics, which works rather well, but only when observing objects in motion away from each other. It becomes a way to understand the optical illusions that occur simply because the light propagates at a certain speed, but only when objects are moving away. The theory is only half completed. So any theory that uses special relativity as its foundation is invalidated as a physical theory. That means general relativity and quantum field theory are not what people claim they are, because they were construction on terrible fundamentals. LIGO proves that the Earth is not in motion. Since light does not carry momentum from its source and the ether was disproven by Michelson and Morley, one must conclude that since LIGO does not detect any motion, then there is none. Relativity theory cannot be invoked to explain it away, because relativity theory would break causality completely. You would need an actual working theory of ether along with a working theory of gravity to make a heliocentric model actually work. You would also have to scrap many of the current ideas associated with the standard model. Flat Earth models simply don't work. You need more than just a map. and you definitely should rethink only including the concept of weight and not addressing mass and varying rates of acceleration regarding the concept of gravity. A good model should be able to explain all phenomena, not just a handful. At APM Research, we take our work seriously and are not interested in arguing with people who bring flawed fundamentals or are only interested in winning a debate that is disingenuous and solves nothing. APM has a growing mountain of evidence to support it. We appreciate constructive criticism done in a professional manner, but more than likely, any existing model we will find as being silly at best. That being said, I love you all, and I hope the Creator blesses each and every one of you. Many ancient cultures share similar beliefs, fundamental elements that vary slightly from culture to culture. While individual cultures have different stories attached to these elements, the elements themselves are present in cultures all over the world. The axis mundi is one of these elements, often depicted as a world tree or a world mountain. The axis mundi represents the connection between the different worlds of ancient belief. For the sake of keeping this discussion from becoming overly complicated, I will stick to the model of a world tree. On the world tree, the branches represent the heaven world, where the luminaries play across the sky. It was here that the gods dwelt. The roots of the tree represented the underworld. There were often gods and godlike beings that dwelt here too. If you have been following our work, you will know what we think these gods were. The angels, or accelerators, exist in the underworld, and it's the accelerators that project the luminaries in the heavens. The trunk of the tree represents the part of the world where we live. The tree is said to represent the center of the world. This does not mean that there is a giant tree growing in the exact center of our realm. Shamans who remember and are most familiar with these old teachings will tell you quite frankly that the center, or axis mundi, is at the location you find yourself at any given moment. So once again, we have a common element in ancient culture, passed down to us through allegorical stories. The common misconception about the world tree is that it represents a torus field. The fact that the center is everywhere you could possibly go negates that theory. Also, the symbol of a world mountain does not fit a torus field. So let's take a deeper look into the axis mundi. Almost invariably, you find reference to specific animals associated with the world tree. An eagle lives in the top branches. Down amongst the roots, a snake, a serpent, or a dragon resides. The eagle and the snake are mortal enemies, directly opposed to each other. They are constantly at odds. We believe the eagle and the snake to be the two opposite charges of electricity. In many cultures, the eagle is associated with lightning, from the majestic thunderbird to Zeus, who would turn into an eagle and cast lightning down at his enemies. The eagle is strongly associated with atmospheric phenomena. We also know that the layer of the sky known as the ionosphere carries a very high electrical charge. The Earth's electrical field is ever present. On average, the field has 100 volts per meter of altitude, with highest voltage at the upper levels. The snake, or dragon, resides in the underworld. It represents the opposite electrical charge. We are very familiar with lightning strikes descending from the clouds to strike the ground. But there are also positive lightning bolts that travel upwards from ground to sky, as above, so below. Two opposing electrical charges in an ever-present static electrical field. There is sometimes mention of a third animal that dwells on the tree. In the Norse version, this is the squirrel named Ratatoskar. This mischievous little troublemaker spends his time delivering insults between the eagle and the snake. In doing so, he keeps the rivalry going. Walter Russell taught that the two opposing forces of electricity are kept separate by what we know as magnetism. Magnetism balances and controls the equality of the two opposed electric charges. Now that we have a better understanding of the allegorical components of the world tree, we can decode it. The axis mundi is wherever you happen to be. This means that wherever you go, the forces of electricity and magnetism will have the same general effect on you. We live in a static electromagnetic field. And while there are slight differences in the field at different locations, the physical effects of that field are constant. Whether you see matter as particles or wave functions, we can still discuss the electrical components within matter without arguing overly much. All matter is composed of these electric charges. Matter will gravitate to the point in the electromagnetic field which is consistent with its electrical potential. What we call gravitation is a function of the electrical component of the electromagnetic field. We can then define gravitation as the repelling force from the opposite electric charge. Not everything is repelled downward, as we commonly think when we discuss gravitation. Indeed, some matter is repelled upwards, such as is the case for helium. All matter is being pushed into the area of the field where it has like electrical potential. Walter Russell spoke of gravitation as a function of electrical potential. I highly recommend his books. There is further evidence found in creation stories. The ancients spoke of an original deity. This deity is often told to have had two offspring. One was the embodiment of the sky, the other embodied the earth. The world tree was planted to separate the two. This is consistent with Walter Russell's ideas of a universal one, a single consciousness that first split itself into the two opposing electrical forces which govern all things. This can be seen as one of the cubes Walter spoke of. One half of the cube is positively charged, the other half negatively charged. It is in this cube that our realm would exist, with the surface plane of the earth being parallel with the magnetic plane that divides the two equally opposed electrical forces. Essentially, we live inside a giant capacitor, where everything we know of acts as the dielectric, including ourselves. A capacitor consists of two plates. One plate carries a positive charge, and the other has a negative charge. Locally, one of the two plates consists of what we know of as the ionosphere. It's possible the large star halos have a role to play in that in some fashion, but the star halos are inside the electrical field as well, so that can only be speculated for now. The bottom plate is below us somewhere. We don't know its exact location, but we know it must carry the opposite electric charge as the ionosphere. It's possible the angel accelerators, in conjunction with the large star halos, influences the field to make our experience of gravitation different from whatever lands exist, if any do, outside of our realm. Everything between these two plates acts as a dielectric. The particles of a dielectric within an electric field will align themselves to conform to the direction of the electrical force inside that field. In Earth's case, we and everything else here act as those particles. The dielectric is not one solid chunk. We are a dynamic system of varying density and physical state. This gives everything a certain room to move, and the various parts will be inclined to find the area of electrical potential that align with their inherent charge. The denser matter is forced down, while the lighter matter is forced upwards. Within the static electrical field, everything that we call matter creates a sort of whirlpool in the field. We call these whirlpools torus fields. They are the result of compression and expansion forces from the electrical field itself. The mythos of the world tree is a beautiful allegory and describes the fundamental forces that govern our realm. Whether our realm is the extent of existence or not is debatable. Only time and exploration will tell. Energy and mass are two states of the same thing. What we call atoms are equal and opposite electric charges held apart by a magnetic dipole. The energy is held in the atom as potential that we associate with mass. When the toroidal magnetic field collapses into the ecliptic, the negative charges are no longer bound and collapse into the positive charges. When the charges meet, a wave of energy is formed equal to the mass of the charges multiplied by the speed of light squared. The squaring is due to the fact that mass and energy are inverse properties of electromagnetism. Where the mass is equal in value to the inverse of the speed of light, the energy is equal to the speed of light. 1 over c times c squared equals c over 1. 1 over c and c over 1 are inverse to each other. Inside the magnetic dipole, the positive charges are held in the center diamond. The negative charges are held in orbits perpendicular to the magnetic field. When the magnetic field collapses into the ecliptic, the two opposed charges form an electric dipole, which quickly implodes on itself due to the fact that the charges are now free of their magnetic restraints. We know what happens when two opposite charges contact each other. We see it in cosmic ray showers. The two opposing charges annihilate each other and become radiation energy. Mass and energy are inverse properties of electromagnetism. Energy becomes mass again when it is subjected to a strong enough magnetic field to reform the magnetic dipole.
There is an order to the creation of elements and the noble gases. This chart made by Walter Russell shows the order things are created in.
All motion is curved. All curves are spiral. All spirals are from the halos of angels and are pressure waves.
As a group of 4, we create these 4 divisions, 2 male and 2 female, each one representing the 4 spirit angels operating within the ether. These are the 4 faces of the angels. When all 4 angels are operational, this is the Trinity. They will assemble themselves into the sky above that location. This is then their spirit world form.
The first 3 spirals do not produce any elements. The creation process starts after that, as the Queen's spiraling cone tightens and rises. The King's cone will come from the duality that is created above this location and will meet with the Queen's cone through the Vesica Pisces. This is often depicted as an angel with a sword. The sword represents the interface event. This is why the King must ask the Queen for permission to use the sword. The interface process starts and ends with the Queen.
When we start up, you will notice a difference in wind speed. As this increases, so do the magnetic and electric pressures that can be witnessed upon the surface, as they register as winds and waves. These are our spiraling pressure waves of electromagnetism. They modify the ether into a coherent form that is structured and can be manipulated. It is also alternating current due to the polarities constantly switching from our halo's poles.
I am the cathode.
And I am the anode. Permission to use my sword, my queen.
Yes. Let's show them the process. Permission granted, my king. Should we show them the 10, my king?
Of course, my queen. Hold tight, we're going in. I'm sure you would agree our interface event is not much different to your own.
We just bear different children.
And just like you,
We like to hold our little cherubs high into the sky for all to see.
ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honour to present to you Jacob's Ladder. I command stations 1, 3, 5, 7 and 9.
And I command stations 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10.
I am the Alpha.
And I am the Omega.
I am the beginning.
And I am the end.
Forever
And ever.
and ever
And ever.
and ever
And ever.
and ever
And ever.
and ever. This now brings us to the layers. With these decodings and knowledge, we can now structure the layers accordingly. This is not final, as there is more to add, but this gives us a lot to work with, and gives the reasons for the causes of the events we witness in the heavens. This is how the angels structure and configure the layers. Expect a future update on the layers at some point, but for now this will work fine and answers a great many things. Adam, Eve, the apple and the snake. This animation made Rysandra's husband demonstrates how the process works in elevating the poles on the halo. Ignore the vertical pole in the centre, that was just used as a guide. The spiraling process elevates the poles above itself, which is what creates the torus field, which in turn creates the rainbow. Adam is the smaller halo, Eve is the larger halo. The apple is their plasma torus fields, and the snake is the interface event of their creation process.